Aloha, folks, and welcome to this edition of Five Questions here on HawaiiReporter.com, also on KHVHradio.com, and on the Rick Hamada program. It is a delight to spend some time together with State Representative Tom Brower for this edition of Five Questions. And, Tom, thanks so much for being with us today. Aloha, how are you?
Hey, thanks, Rick, and I am happy to be here.
Thank you indeed. Well, let's jump right on in. Five questions, and, Tom, the first one, quite simply put, would be, could you tell us about your district, what makes it unique, and what should we know about it?
Sure. I represent the Waikiki District. It's District 23 of 51 districts. It includes nearly all of Waikiki, as well as the Ala Moana Center neighborhood and Kaka'ako from Kapiolani Boulevard to Kapiolani Boulevard to Punch Bowl, and then to the seashore. And it's a very vibrant district. It's got a lot of tourism as well as a lot of shopping.
The composition of the populace, I understand it's a fairly transient population, but we have some Kama'aina old-timers, yeah? Yeah,
about 30% of the residents are seniors. And myself, at age 46, I learned that I'm just 4 years away from being considered a member of AARP, should I wish to join. But
okay.
We do have a lot of working people, too, though, because of the composition of the district. So it is challenging when it comes to election or on some of the issues, because you have to know about the younger people who may be starting a working career and be starting in apartment housing, as well as people who may be closer to retirement who choose to live in this neighborhood.
What are some of the top-of-mind issues that your constituents express to you?
Well, any issue related to what I'll call a little big city. So I know we're going to talk about homelessness, so I will save that, but we have a lot to say about that. Any infrastructure needs, whether it's traffic, as well as we have a number of sewage repairs and infrastructure concerns. And we also have issues regarding law enforcement because it is a major population center. And right now I'm in the Waikiki neighborhood just across the street from the convention center, and this is the most densely populated neighborhood in the state. So we have all those concerns regarding traffic and public safety.
Understand. Thank you for that, Tom. We'll go to question number 2. Let's talk about the state budget for a moment. As a state representative, I know that this last session had been fairly arduous in trying to develop a balanced budget with the constraints that we have from our economy. Also, the Council on Revenues just released their report, which means that they have pretty much stood by what their initial projections were for the upcoming near future. What, first of all, as far as the budget goes, what was your overall reaction to the conclusion? Second of all, Council on Revenue's projection. How will it have an impact on our community?
Well, from being at the Capitol and seeing the budget process, for 4 of my 5 years I've been on the Budget Committee, and overall I'm optimistic or I'm cautious, but I'm happy with how the budget process went because I think it could have been a lot worse. And there were a number of items on the table for tax increases, and not as many as I thought made it through, which I'm happy about. And when it comes to the Council on Revenues, to have an 11% increase in, I guess, within about a year from now, to me, is really exciting. And I think everyone's crossing their fingers because, I mean, it's just going to help us out of the hole we're in tremendously if that holds through.
As a Budget Committee member, what would there be to justify or at least quantify the projection of an 11% increase?
Well, from my understanding, the Council on Revenues is looking at a number of factors, including construction, tourism, military spending, as well as let's say the spending habits of the working rank and file in the state, and they put all that together. And I mean, when I see national news, I see signs that we're recovering, but I think that we can be very optimistic if these numbers hold through, which I'm just going to have to rely on their expertise, and it looks like we're not going to have to make any fine-tuning adjustments to the state budget in the near future through a special session.
Talking with State Representative Tom Brower, representing District 23, and it's this edition of 5 Questions. Tom, number 3, you did refer to it earlier, and it truly is a top-of-mind issue. The homeless situation here in Hawaii, with the advent of APEC and also a tremendous amount of attention being paid to Hawaii. I know that you have been intimately involved in finding solutions regarding our homeless situation in Hawaii. Can you expand on that, Tom? What's your overall assessment, and where do we go from here?
Well, let me speak about the neighborhood.
Sure.
And I hate to see people illegally camping in Waikiki, mainly because this is our bread and butter for the tourism industry. And in a way, Waikiki is how we put our best foot forward to people who are visiting. And I walk through the district many times during the month. I often walk home from the capital late at night through Kaka'ako, through Waikiki, and I see homelessness at Ala Moana Center, which I think we need to correct. But it does not, I'm not as emotional and upset about it as when I see it in Waikiki. And the only reasonable solution, I think, that we can have for homelessness now is creating some type of camp setting where homelessness can go. So, for example, when we have a natural disaster, government provides shelters to people who don't have homes. We currently have what I'm guessing is an economic disaster, and that's why we have an increase of homelessness. And I think the state should work on providing land somewhere to allow people to camp similarly to how they're camping illegally now. Because the shelters, with whatever rules they have, I don't want to get into whether it's justifiable on how they manage themselves, but it's obvious that the homeless will not go into the shelters. So we just need to provide a similar setting to where they are now. And if we have these locations, and I could even find some in my district, because I believe if I tell constituents, if I can nearly promise you to eliminate homeless in these areas of the district, would you allow for a temporary camping facility for the homeless in this area? And I think that people will go for it because it's the only reasonable solution. People who are homeless are going to be somewhere, and I think the state needs to be more responsible, and it also needs to be more tougher in deciding the future of homelessness, because right now we have these campsites by de facto everywhere.
One quick aside, and just your opinion, Tom, and that would be what Governor Abercrombie and, for want of a better description, homeless czar Mark Alexander, with 2 initial offerings to the general public, one regarding a hotline number and the other a rather controversial portion of an overall 90-day plan about feeding homeless and urging people not to feed homeless in the parks. What is your reaction to the state's efforts so far, and your thoughts about the homeless effort under this administration?
Well, the advertiser's editorial on the phone number on the homeless was that it was a fairly weak initial proposal. And I agree with the editorial. That being said, I think we know where the homeless are. So the hotline, it can be a benefit, but we're going to have to do a lot more. I think that the administration is on the right track because I many times have gone to Kapiolani Park and see the homeless being fed there. And while my heart goes out to them, I think we're at a stage now where we've been doing it for so long that now it's becoming more of a gathering place 24 hours a day than what was meant to be a temporary area to feed the homeless. And if the administration is sincere about its proposal, it now has to start to create laws to eliminate people from feeding the homelessness as it turns into a situation where it becomes a big campground. In Kaka'ako, near the med school, each Thursday evening, some church groups would gather and they would feed the homeless. It's closer to the state's Next Step shelter for the homeless. It just makes more sense to do it there. So I think right now that government needs to work with these groups that feed the homeless and just come up with a more practical setting, and that includes government getting tough. It's one thing to point out what the problem is, but we have a lot of people who can find problems, but we need now to get tough with the solutions, and I expect that if the homeless czar is sincere about people feeding the homeless, then he is going to start to come up with laws which I will rally House members to support.
We're speaking with Representative Tom Brower. It's a pleasure for this edition of 5 Questions on HawaiiReporter.com and KHVHradio.com and on the Rick Hamada program. Tom, our fourth question for you today, of course, representing Waikiki, oftentimes referred to as the economic engine of our state. Can you give us a primer on tourism as you see it today, some of the challenges that we are facing, but also on the upside, some of the positive aspects of Waikiki and tourism, please?
Well, the biggest positive aspect is that people keep coming back to Hawaii, and that's the most exciting thing for me, because when I look at Waikiki, I've lived here for 28 years, and often I'm jaded because I've been here a while, and I see what's wrong. And I think there's a lot of fine-tuning we need to do to keep the visitors coming back. And I'm a little selfish in some ways because I also want Waikiki to always be the Hawaii tourism mecca over other neighborhoods that are starting to get tourism, whether it be in Ko'olina or the Big Island or Maui. So I'm always keyed in on tourism, but especially tourism in my neighborhood, because I just think it adds such a great dynamic when visitors from Japan and the United States and other parts of the world mix with our roughly 20,000 residents here. And I think what the biggest challenge is, and has been for a long time, is that Hawaii as a state is competing with other countries. And other countries have more sizable budgets, and some of them, maybe they have a more rural setting than Hawaii because we're considered an advanced visitor destination. So the biggest challenge is how does a state compete with other countries?
On that note, and just a very brief aside, is that there were measures. There was one specific bill that called for a standalone casino in Waikiki. Now, the merits and demerits of gambling can be debated, but part of the justification for that was to expand entertainment options and expand experiences for our tourists. Aside from gambling, or maybe if you'd like to comment on that, what can we do to, for want of a better phrase, freshen up Waikiki and provide an even more valuable experience for our tourists?
Yeah, that is a really good question, and I believe that people's values and the things they want in life changes over the generations, and I believe that people are more open to gambling today. For example, we see the World Series of Poker on television. Well, why can't we hold that in Waikiki? It would be, it would just take a month. I think it would go great, and it wouldn't be a situation where a lot of residents would be gambling, and that would be a great way on how we can get our feet wet on the issue of gambling. I don't think we're going to have as many problems as people anticipate if Hawaii gets gambling. And my attitude is that I don't fear gambling, as I don't fear a lot of different things that may be new to Hawaii. One of the biggest arguments I hear against gambling is that gambling doesn't represent the feeling of Hawaii when you come as a tourist. But I don't think gambling is any less representative than going to the shopping mall or a lot of our other entertainment experiences. I just see that gambling, if done right, and we can't let it get out of control. Maybe gambling like you might see in Monte Carlo or something. Mm-hmm. But if we do it right, it will open us up to new types of tourists who maybe by tradition wouldn't think of coming to Hawaii. It would also allow a lot of our residents, whose number one tourist destination is Las Vegas, to stay in Hawaii. If they're not losing their shirts in Las Vegas, I don't think they're going to be losing their shirts should we have gambling in Honolulu.
Appreciate the answer, Tom. Thank you so much. Representative Tom Brower is our guest for this edition of 5 Questions. Tom, our final question for you. 2012 is right around the corner. That means the beginning of another legislative session, but it also means another election cycle. Wanted to find out from you your personal plans for 2012 and also what you foresee that would be the dominant topic of conversation during the upcoming session.
Well, it's going to be the budget, I believe. Hopefully we will have a stronger economy. And I think that a lot more people are going to learn the lesson that even in the good times, we can't spend like a drunken sailor. And what I do is I try to conduct myself as a very frugal legislator. And I think that's in part because I've never had a lot of money in life. And that's why I just pay as much attention as I can to how money is spent when it's collected from the taxpayers. So the budget is going to be number one, and we need to be focused on it. And let's not be focused on any other frivolous matters. I'm going to try to continue as best I can to conduct myself professionally, and I am just looking forward to the future because I just think that this gives us a great chance to really rise above it all and put our best foot forward because I really do believe our best days are in front of us, and we now have the knowledge of what may be past mistakes or past history to learn from that and move forward.
Excellent points. Running for re-election for the House, or is there another position that you might be looking toward for next year, Tom?
I would likely run for the House because I'm just trying to contribute as much as I can, and I try to make it more about the people who are around me than about my own future. So I haven't really thought about it a lot, but relatively I haven't spent a lot of time in public service, just about 5 years. But I do plan to run for re-election, and I just continue to ask the people for their support if they believe that I could be the kind of leader that they would want in their neighborhood.
Tom Brower, State Representative, District 23. I cannot thank you enough, Tom, for the conversation and for joining us for this edition of 5 Questions. I hope we can chat again soon.
Mahalo.
All right. Thanks so much, Tom. Aloha.
Bye now. Thank you, Rick.
Bye now.